All right. Well, what is it, Wednesday? Happy Wednesday, everybody. My name is Jeremy Alder. I'm a staff product designer on the foundations team. And I put together a little deck here and a walkthrough of component health. It's something that we've been working on for several years now. I think the earliest thing goes back to 2023. So it's not like New Year's resolutions for the components or anything. But the goal is to make your use of the design system just more meaningful, and at the same time make the design system team's efforts just more informed and productive. Uh, so here we go. So yeah, we've got a lot of hardworking components, but we don't always have a sense of like how they're doing or how fit they are for their jobs. We really don't have like good metrics around that. We can look at little bits here and there. We can kind of assimilate like an idea of it, but we want to make sure that this is communicated more holistically. Design system teams typically track things like adoption status, engagement, open tickets, design parity, you name it. There's a ton of things that we can track. And a lot of teams they'll have that, but and they'll focus on adoption or they'll focus on UI coverage, but it doesn't tell like a complete story. And that's what we were running into as we started this effort was like, how are we going to, I mean, there's so many things to measure. How are we going to communicate it in one clear way? And so we decided to essentially bundle some of these metrics and call it the component health. And it's a story about each component. And the story has two audiences and two primary targets. But first, I think it would be helpful to start with a quick metaphor. It's the grid metaphor, flipping the switch on the current state. Lots of puns in there. Sorry. So electrical grid. Imagine you're a homeowner. You rely on the electrical grid. And as you're sitting there in your recliner, you just want to know, like, is it available? Is power ready to use? Features. Does it work with my appliances? Am I going to be able to use everything in my household effectively? Is it capable? Will it handle the load if I'm doing all of these things at once or a combination of things? And service. How do I get help if there's something wrong with the power? So as a homeowner, you don't need to understand how the grid works. You just need to know that if you flip a switch, push a button, it's going to be there. It's going to work, so you can enjoy your sandwich and watch the show. But meanwhile, over at the power grid, at the power plant, there's a couple operators, and they're focused on different things. They're focused on the status. They're focused on, is everything working, or is there maintenance needed? The infrastructure, is it sound? Is it robust? Are the connections there that are needed? Capacity, are we providing, current enough power for current and future demand? And testing, like will we catch problems before they cause outages? And lastly, documentation, like are all these operational standards met and guidelines clear? So we have two different things happening with the power plant. We have the consumers and we have those that are maintaining it, which is a really good example of how design system teams work with design system consumers. And so this gets back to health and why we're using health. It's because health evaluates use for consumers, upkeep for maintainers, and readiness for both. Uh, if you have a power grid, it can technically be healthy, but just as a component can be deployed, it could lack robust implementation. So just the fact that something exists doesn't mean that it's healthy or ready to be used. And by doing this with health, we focus on a score that will provide like a spectrum of reliable indicators rather than like a single rating. So back to the two audiences. Let's switch out of the metaphor here. The first is you, design system consumers, and your key concerns when using a component in design and development is availability. Like, is it available in Figma, Vue, Rails, the places that I need to work on it? Does it have such and such features? So things like variants, props, slots, tests, responsive interaction. Uh, are you confident in how or when to use it? And lastly, like how might you contribute to enhancements or fixes? So as a consumer, it's more of the usage and it's focused more on that implementation side. But for maintainers, we're looking at the key current concerns of authoring, maintaining, testing, etc. Does it fulfill design and development requirements? Does it satisfy accessibility? Does documentation cover configuration and composability? Is there technical debt, a need for refactoring or planned enhancements? So we got a couple of different things at work here. And when we looked at this, we also needed to be really efficient with our effort. We don't want to be spending time chasing a whole bunch of metrics. We want to do one effort that's going to be meaningful for both audiences, and that's why we jumped into health. So, yeah, so that everything can work together. And uh, I have no idea why the claymation looks like Jared Spool, but I'll just say that maybe it just represents the UX department and that concept. So jump into a little bit of background, and then I'll show you what the matrix looks like today. First, where does this sit in the overall effort for the design system team? It sits in our larger effort to improve component maturity. A lot of components have sat and been stagnant. There's feature requests. There's things that we're trying to do to catch up with design need and usage. And that's what we've really transitioned to this year is more of a service mindset where we can work together and provide consumers more of what they need. So this larger epic deals with health, deals with documentation consolidation, et cetera, et cetera. Little background, I won't go through any of this here, but we've had two pretty robust efforts to define what the component health factors are. So those are linked in the document or in the agenda. You can check those out. Uh, there's also a component health evaluation tracking because we wanted to be able to track the different efforts within GitLab. Uh, and then another effort that if there's time, I'll loop back to, and that is actually making component health visible in documentation. So if you can imagine going to a component page in Pajamas and seeing, okay, button, okay, for Figma, it's ready. For Vue, it's ready, et cetera, et cetera. Being able to have a consistent way to communicate that health to everyone at point of use. All right. So what I did with the effort was I needed an effective and a simple way to take input consistently. Like, how are we going to consistently evaluate each component against a set of criteria so that we can provide actual meaningful metrics across the board? With the help of Claude, I created a next project that heavily leverages JSON. So the goal would be to eventually have something like this within the Pajama site functioning. So I wanted to have it portable. And yeah, so worked with Claude, built a local web app that tracks things and does local storage and has whatnot. So I'll just show that quick here. So this is the current website, and you can, this is live. You can take a look at this yourself and even give it a shot. But what this is about is allowing like a consistent intake, like I mentioned, and consistent reporting. So I won't read through all this, but essentially there's a get started here, how to commit the changes, typical README kind of things. And then the component health has two main parts. One is the evaluation, and the other is the output, the matrix. And as part of the evaluation, there's 7 steps. And this form is something that allows you to just usefully go through each component. And as a team, we can do this here, or we can do it in the repo, etc. But let's just say I want to update something for the badge. All right, so I've chosen component. These components are listed. They match what we have in Pajamas today in documentation. And so I'm going to go ahead and continue. So the first thing is to assess design status. What are their, what is this? Does it cover all states and variants? Are Figma components ready? Do the design assets align with code examples? Are there issues, open issues, etc.? And I can go through a component, answer these questions, and determine, like, is it ready? Is it partial? Like, there's some things that are missing. Are there things that are efforts that are planned around design that I need to provide notes on? So let's go ahead and I'm just going to say planned. I'm changing the status here. There's already some notes in here because there's data already in the matrix, so I can just update this. Let's just say I want to, make pipeline. It's okay if I have typos in here. Status and an option. All right, we'll just call it that. So drop some notes in there. Hit next. Now I'm in code. And we often focus on providing assets in Vue, but oftentimes they're needed in Rails too. So from a code standpoint, again, some more considerations here. Go through that. It is ready in Vue. Let's see here. It's partial in Rails, so we're just going to leave that for now. Next up is documentation. I go through and evaluate the documentation. Look at a page in Pajamas for a badge and see, are there any to-dos in this page? Is there anything in here that is incomplete or missing that I would need to fill out? If not, great. Then I can go ahead and come back over here and say, oh, it's ready. I didn't see anything there. Accessibility. This has to do with like providing an accessibility evaluation. In this case, one's already been done and it's linked from within. Any additional details I can add into here. And then I hit next. Here's a summary. So I can go ahead and just review, like here are the changes. Here's their overall status. I can go ahead and submit this. Submitted. I'm going to go ahead and jump over to component matrix now. And this matrix is not something that you would have to sort through, although we want to make something like this available to you. But if you could imagine, I focused on badge, just having this, this content here for badge on the badge page for you to view and access, where you could quickly say, you know what, Figma, it's planned. Okay, this is why, in view, it's ready. There's no notes, nothing there. It's ready to go. I want to see if there's any maybe issues about this. I can go ahead and look at work items that are tagged with it, any merge requests. And then I can also view a report summary, and I can take this in Markdown and port it over to an issue. I can port it over to wherever necessary that I might want to communicate the status of this badge, like if we're doing planning or anything. And then the option to download a CSV or JSON, JSON so that I can make these updates locally, or a CSV if I want to drop the data into Claude or something else and do some more evaluation on it. Like why are so many components partial for docs? Like what's the main cause? Things like that, where we can actually work with this data. So that's kind of a rundown of this of component health and what we plan to do. I'll switch back over to Figma here. Yeah. Okay, let's see if I can get this to show up. All right, so Figma, this is something that Dan's been working on. Conceptually, just how are we going to communicate this for you as a consumer and for us as a team? Imagine you're on a component page, you have the heading, you have just individual statuses for different things that are there, and you have the ability to take a look at that and go through it. So buzzing through a lot there, but this is an ongoing effort. We're trying to focus on components when we can to be able to go and provide a full assessment, and then to have this data provided for you in a meaningful way. The matrix is live. I did link to that. It is up to date, so you can even now start to look at a status there. But that's all I want to share on that. So let's see if there's any questions in the doc.
No questions in the doc, but does anyone have a question they'd like to vocalize? I feel like I've given that one a sufficient awkward silence.
Yeah,
Thank you, Jeremy, so much for presenting.
yeah, thanks.